So in some ways, you need to read yesterday's story for parts of today's story to make sense. But it was a 6-month process to get to the story that he wrote yesterday, where they talked with a couple dozen stakeholders in college athletics, attorneys, administrators, players, coaches, Todd Berry from the AFCA. And it really, in great detail with number, explained collectives and what they were doing. There are even specialty collectives at the University of Texas. You remember the waffle story for the offensive lineman? Did you know about the Burnt Ends Club at Texas? The Burnt Ends Club is a group that is raising money specifically for the position of tight end. And their goal was to raise $70,000 a year to make sure that each tight end on the roster got $10,000 a year. And then you've got directives, which is where you've got individuals that are directing money, like John Ruiz, most famously, the Miami booster, who is an attorney and an entrepreneur and has over 100 Miami student athletes on his payroll, and is paying them to advertise his 2 companies, which is funny. One of them kind of makes sense. It's like a healthcare application deal, Life Wallet. But he also owns the cigarette boat racing team.
The most annoying boats on the water. Not the race, just the ones that exist out there.
Oh, yeah, but they're also some of the coolest.
If you're on one.
I mean, you're talking about a 30 to 40 foot power boat that can go 100 miles an hour on the open water. But how is a Miami football player advertising a cigarette boat going to help the guy sell a cigarette boat? It's not. But it's okay. He's paying them to advertise. He's going to spend $10 million of his own money on Miami athletes this year. Good for him. But now, this story coming from Scottsdale, Arizona, college leaders are gearing up to issue a warning to hundreds of wealthy boosters who are using name, image, and likeness ventures to involve themselves in recruiting. We got a problem here. So now college administrators see that this is a problem because we have re-entered late 70s, early 80s, massive pay-for-play scheme territory. Who could have seen this coming? I mean, who could have seen this coming? So now you're telling me that college administrators, in a panic to somehow try to bring this thing back between the ditches, are going to encourage the NCAA, who has been slapped multiple times by the Supreme Court for restricting student athletes' ability to make money on their own, and has been told in no uncertain terms by the Supreme Court that if you end up in front of us again, the ruling will be broader and it will be harsher next time. And 30 different state laws exist that say it is okay in the state of fill in the blank. Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Nevada, Colorado, etc., 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 for you to pay players for their name, image, and likeness. And, oh, by the way, a lot of those laws that were quickly put into place a year ago have been amended after just 1 year to give universities the ability to work with the collectives when the initial language said universities couldn't be involved. And now, all of a sudden, college administrators are going, whoa, 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 this is out of control. We got to do something. NCAA enforcement is going to have to step in. But every story we read is how the NCAA is dying. That Mark Emmert has no power, and that the biggest and baddest and richest schools, if they don't get their way in terms of making rules that help them, are willing to step away from the NCAA altogether. Can somebody please connect the dots and help me make any of this make sense? You didn't need a crystal ball to see this coming. You needed a heartbeat and oxygen to keep the blood flowing. And the most basic cursory knowledge of recruiting and the desire to win among boosters with money to see that this was the end result. The NCAA, look, over how many times NCAA buried its head in the sand for years and years and years. You know what? That's a cop-out. And it's a cop-out that university leaders are more than happy to now point to, well, the NCAA didn't do anything. How many times have we heard what the NCAA is? The NCAA is its members. So guess what? I'm not going to sit by here. Look, I've taken a million shots at the NCAA, and about 999,000 of them were deserved. But I'm not willing to let the university presidents off the hook here because they are the ones that buried their heads in the sand. If the university presidents and the leadership at schools all across the country really had wanted to get something done at the NCAA level, they could have directed the organization that is made up of themselves to do something about it. So guess what? It's real fun to punch Mark Emmert. And goodness knows he deserves to be punched because he's a moron and has been wildly ineffective in his leadership at the NCAA. But it's not fair for it only to be Mark Emmert who you're punching right now, because this mess falls at the feet of university presidents who didn't want to deal with it and who said, it's not going to, whatever, and stood by and watched the NCAA get slapped by the Supreme Court time after time, while also footing the legal bill for all of those terrible cases that happened. And now they're going to be like, whoa, we didn't see this coming. Well, then you're stupid. If you didn't see this coming, you're stupid and you're complicit because you allowed it to happen. You allowed the NCAA to sit there and not do what it needed to do to prepare for this day. And guess what? I got bad news for you. The toothpaste is not going back in the tube. Not the way you want it to. You can't let all of this happen and then go, whoa, we got to put some restrictions on that. That ain't how it works. You made your bed.
Also, love the passion earlier, by the way. That was good stuff.
Thanks. I'm not even mad at the NCAA anymore.
Because you're right. Who gives them the power? Who allowed all this to happen? But I have a theory on why they're going down this road. I think the people involved in this understand that the toothpaste is out of the tube and they're not putting it back in. I think they get that there's really nothing they can do. Let's be honest. They've never adequately enforced their rules ever. But what I have learned through all of this, there are a lot of people out there that probably knew how college sports worked, that probably knew that guys were getting paid under the table to go places. I mean, we've seen these high-profile cases. Cam Newton, let's be honest. Reggie Bush. These things have gone on for a long time.
What would Cam Newton be worth today?
$4 or $5 million? I mean, you win a national championship with him playing quarterback for your school. You win a national championship with Cam Newton on your roster. Yeah, probably. But we know that this has existed. We saw what happened when all the college basketball coaches got arrested. 24 schools were named in that. Multiple football programs, Michigan football, Clemson football. We've heard, his name's escaping me, the former number one recruit that went to Michigan. Oh, gosh, what was his name? His mom said that a school offered him $300,000 to go there. And Rashawn Gary, thank you. So we know about guys like him. People should have, if they didn't know that this is how college sports work.
Wait, did Ole Miss offer him $300,000?
No, she said it wasn't Ole Miss, and it wasn't Michigan where he went, and he had a top three of Michigan,
only $250 from Ole Miss,
and Clemson. So process of elimination. Either way, we know everybody knew that this was happening, but it happened in the shadows. When somebody said, prove it, you couldn't other than logic, but there was no paper trail. You don't know why Nakobe Dean went to Georgia, even though you know why Nakobe Dean went to Georgia, but there's no paper trail. We don't see it happening. We just know it happened. I think what this can possibly do is make this stuff operate in the shadows again, which is where people would prefer it. They would prefer to be willfully ignorant to the true underbelly of college football because they love to pretend that it was pure. I'm telling you, I'm
not disagreeing with you. I think your point's fine. Hey, Dad, you know one thing that's crazy? I mean, you've heard enough through the years, off the record, about dollar amounts to know and be incredibly certain about this thing for sure. The market has changed. The cost of doing business has gone way up.
Because now you're seeing guys who you would never give money to in the old days get money. That's part of it. You know,
and the guys that were getting money are getting way more money.
Are getting more money. Yeah. It's, it's kind of the opposite of how the American business sector works, where it's like where the rising tide has lifted all ships. So yeah, and it's going to continue until somebody gets on. I don't think this is going to work though, because, like you said, you can't close the box at this point. So I don't know where they go with that. I don't know.
I was looking. There was a quote. I don't know if I've still got the article pulled up from last night. I don't think I do. Borky, there was a quote in the big Ross Dellinger story last night. So Sports Illustrated now has a pseudo paywall. You get 4 articles free, and then after that, I don't know, whatever.
I mean, surely our friend Ross could hook you up with a password.
Or I could just pay for it, right? I mean, I could not be a mooch and just pay
you could, but this is America where everybody, leeches off passwords. I mean, I'm using somebody's Disney Plus. They're using my Paramount. What are we talking about here?
Did you see that Netflix stock plummeted after they announced they were going to cut down on password sharing?
You're dang right. Nobody's going to go for that.
Weren't there like 200 million password sharing accounts that were out there?
It was something ridiculous like that, yeah.
20 million, whatever the number was. The point is, there was a quote from an assistant coach in there that said in the past when you heard a player was getting $50,000 to go to school X, you thought it was bull bleep. It's not bull bleep anymore.
Here it is. We're funneling everything previously under the table to over the table. The big change is numbers are going up. Before NIL, you knew it was BS if a kid came to you and said he was getting more than $50K from another school. Now numbers that used to be bull aren't bull anymore. I mean, most kids, yeah, but there are some kids that got a lot more than $50K to go to their given school.
There are. But I mean, if you want to rewind to, I mean, what? Like the crazy time is the 2013 signing class. That's where everybody wants to make all the hubbub about. There was a lot that went on that year, right? I think there was, 50 might have been an operable number in 1 or 2 cases, but that was about it. Those guys weren't getting anywhere close to that. Most weren't.
Yeah. And it was other stuff too, right? It was like, get dad a job. Those kind of things. Yeah. It wasn't just straight cash, homie. It was...
Which is the best way to operate, right? Just whatever.
No,
the only way to operate. He writes a check.
Right.
Okay, let me ask you this. There are a lot of messages that have been coming through. Somebody suggested that I was on performance-enhancing drugs in the last segment. This is the one. Simple. What did you expect? NIL will ruin college sports. Agree or disagree?
Oh, I disagree. I mean, for so many reasons. Your team is still, I've said this before, I'll say it again. You're still going to have a team in Starkville and Oxford and Hattiesburg this year take the field wearing your uniform. And the band is still going to...
It's like you're reading my mind. Get out of my head.
and the band is still going to play the fight song. And
hey, Dad's about to start yelling, preach.
And you're still going to get to go to the Grove or the Junction.
He's right.
And they're going to play, and in all likelihood, you're not going to be able to beat Alabama, and you're not going to be able to beat Georgia, just like pretty much every year in your program's existence. And you're just going to hope that your team's competitive, and if they are, you're going to be happy, and you're going to drive down to New Orleans if the season's great, or you're going to reluctantly drive to Memphis if it's not. And the year is going to feel the exact same. I looked these up the other day because I think it bears repeating. When people say, oh, we can't compete anymore, you didn't, and nobody did. There have been 48 college football playoff games played. Remember, NIL just happened. College football playoff is 8 years old. 48 college football playoff games. 13 programs have played in those 48 games. In all of college football, 37 of the 48 games have been played by Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, and Oklahoma. 37 of the 48 college football playoff games have been played by Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, and Oklahoma. 32 total appearances. 32 total appearances in the college football playoff, right? 21 of them belong to Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State. 130 teams in college football. 21 of the 32 appearances in the playoff belong to 4 teams. This didn't change anything. It just made you know about it.
You want to change the dynamic, there's one way. By the way, on that text, I would change one word. NIL will ruin college sports? No, I disagree. NIL will change college sports, and it already has. But you know what? It's not the first time that college athletics has changed. Certainly not the first time that college football has changed. I mean, you can follow all the different cycles, right? I mean, college football had its biggest change in 1983 when Georgia and Oklahoma led the way in the landmark decision where college conferences wrestled their television rights away from the CFA. Well, it was from the NCAA. It's been changing and changing and changing. You want the dynamic to change for Ole Miss or Mississippi State? You need a billionaire booster, not a millionaire booster. You need a billionaire booster who loves it so much that he is willing to change the market and not get caught. And he's got to do it for 5 straight recruits.